celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Dr. Keith Carver, and I believe that anything is possible.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill, and these are, of course, great stories about great people whose lives prove that anything is possible. My guest today is Dr. Keith Carver. See, I had to put that doctor on the front of it. But let me tell you how your reputation precedes you.
Okay.
I have been doing this show for quite a while now. In fact, we've done well over 500 episodes, right? The one thing that I have come to trust as much as anything is when somebody walks up to me and says, have you met, or you've got to meet, or you guys are gonna click. And that is what I have been told about you for quite a while. So it is a high honor to have you here in the studio with me today, because I think the world of you, and we hadn't got to spend that much time together.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you, the honor is all mine. Big fan of your work and love to watch these shows. They're fantastic. So I'm very honored.
Did you think that you would end up at this level of the education game? Did you think your life was going to play out like, was this a possibility?
Absolutely not. You know, when I got into higher education, I was raised by my mother and my grandparents in a very rural part of West Tennessee.
Whereabouts?
A little town. It's Crockett County, which is still, I think, the only county in the state with no stoplights. But they had, my grandparents had a country store and a country grocery store in Frog Jump, Tennessee. And so they lived next door to the store, and then my mother and I lived in a one-bedroom efficiency apartment behind the meat counter of the grocery store. And so,
really,
yeah, it was a great place to be raised.
What was that like growing up there in Frog Jump, Tennessee?
Well, our entire community was agrarian. Everyone farmed or had cattle or were involved in agriculture, and if they didn't have a farm, they worked in agriculture, and it was the only business in that community. So it opened about 5 a.m. And we served breakfast and lunch, and then it had groceries, just the staples you might need. It had a little feed and seed, and then closed down every night about 6 o'clock. So by the age of 7, I could cut and smoke bologna, but also would sweep the floor and pump gas, and it was a great place to be raised. And
you said it was you, your mother, and your grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about your dad?
My dad and mom divorced when I was about 6 years old, and he moved to Middle Tennessee. And we had a great opportunity later in life to really be reconciled. He passed a year ago this month.
Sorry for your loss.
But had a great opportunity as an adult to really come back and foster that relationship.
So you're a little kid in Frog Jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. You probably don't see Chancellor Agriculture Institute, ... yada, yada, yada. That's nowhere on the radar.
No, not at all.
What were the options for a kid like you growing up in Frog Jump?
Good public schools,
right?
But wasn't prepared for college. And so Halloran probably should have gone to a community college, gotten some basics and go, but instead went to a large state university and almost flunked out.
Really?
And so after my
first... So you went to...
It was then Memphis State, which was about an hour and 15 minutes away from home. I needed to go somewhere, where I could get a whole lot of financial aid. With my mother and grandparents, there just wasn't a lot of money.
They just didn't have it.
So I had to go where I could get the most financial aid. Went to Memphis State and knew that I was going to be a medical doctor because all the successful people I knew growing up were physicians. and chemistry and physics and homesickness. And I came home with a 1.98 GPA that Christmas. And I had told myself, okay, I'm not cut out for college. I'm going to drop out. And in those days, Hal, I remember you waited at the mailbox to get your grades. But when I got my grades, I said I was on academic probation. And I thought at that point, well, I'm done. I'm stupid. I can't go back. But my mother and grandmother called the school and found out that probation meant you've got one more chance. And so they sent me back, and with some help of some good mentors, I turned my grades around and had a really good mentor that was the dean of students.
Who was that mentor?
His name was Don Carson, is Don Carson. He's originally from Oneida, Tennessee, and he was the dean of students, and our scholarship folks had said there's this young guy from a rural area, much like he was growing up, and that I might need some mentoring. And so he took me and gave me a job in his office. I worked 15 hours a week. He also made me come back an additional 15 hours a week and study in his conference room until I got my grades up. And it was at that point, Halloran, I knew I wanted to go into higher education because I wanted to try to help kids like me.
Like he did. Isn't it amazing how possibility can turn on a relationship? Mm-hmm. If you run into the right person,
absolutely,
and they pour into you in a way that resonates with you, like Alex Haley would often say, if you see a turtle on a fence post, he had help.
That's exactly right.
So, but I'm just thinking about how possibility can really be born of someone believing for you, in you, believing with you. So that turned your life around academically.
It really
did.
And
because you saw the power of that relationship on your life, you wanted to be involved in that.
That's exactly right. And all I ever really wanted to be was a dean of students, just like he was. And yet I've never been able to be one. Maybe I haven't succeeded yet, but that's what got me into higher education. I had my grandparents' love and support, my mother's love and support, but I just needed someone. They've not finished college. I just needed someone who was there to have confidence in me and say, you can do it.
Possibility powered by Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Now you can listen while you're on the go with Anything is Possible, the podcast.
Finished Memphis State.
Finished Memphis State.
And then what?
Then I came to the University of Tennessee to study higher education, and worked here starting then, and I guess that was 30 years ago this past summer. So really, really exciting. But met a guy at church the first Sunday I was here named Joe Johnson. And
oh my goodness.
So Dr.
We
Joe,
lost a great.
What a rock.
Unbelievable.
What a rock.
Unbelievable.
But
what's your favorite Joe Johnson story in your life?
In my life, I think Dr. Johnson taught me many lessons, but I think the most incredible lesson is observing how he treated people that could never, ever help him.
Unbelievable.
So it was probably 2004. He had been president and retired. We had a couple of derailments, and he came back as interim president.
I remember all of this.
So my daughter was about 5, so it was probably 2003. My daughter was about 5, and he's going to be the Grand Marshal in the UT Homecoming Parade. So we get her out of school. She wants to see her friend, Joe Johnson. And we're standing on the parade route, and Dr. Johnson had been throwing candy. Well, when he got to that corner, he was out of candy. So the next Sunday, we were at church. Carson's 5, they speak the truth, right? Children speak the truth. And Dr. Johnson said, Carson, I saw you at the parade, and thank you for coming and waving at me. And she said, Dr. Johnson, you didn't throw me any candy. The next day at our house, by courier, Dr. Johnson sent her a huge bag of candy bars and said, I'm so sorry, Carson, it'll never happen again. I was a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But there are thousands of stories like that about Dr. Johnson, but the way he treated everyone and treated them equally and made them feel so special, what an example.
I'm thinking about when I started my daily radio show. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't have any contacts in town. And I remember I reached out to Dr. Joe Johnson to be on my radio show. Nobody knew who I was. I was not connected. I didn't know the people that I know now. And lo and behold, he says yes, and he shows up, comes and does the show. You'll know this. If you know Joe Johnson, and anybody watching that knows Joe Johnson, you've had this experience, no doubt. A week after he was on the show, I get a letter.
Amen.
I get a letter from Joe Johnson. I think you're fantastic. You're going to have a great future. If there's ever any way I can help you, you let me know. You're an absolutely fantastic guy.
Personalized.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm looking at different touch points in your life. You had a mentor there that showed you how to be. Mm-hmm. And then you have a mentor in Joe Johnson that shows you how to lead. Mm-hmm. Right? So what happened after that?
You know, worked here, finished graduate school, married my college sweetheart, Holly Ann, and was offered a job back at UTIA upon graduation. But my mother said, you and Holly Ann are forming your own traditions, you're a newly wedded couple. Maybe you should look outside the state, outside UT, just explore a little bit. So we went for 2 years, and I worked at a school about the size of Maryville College called Marietta College in southeastern Ohio. Halloran went through 2 winters in Marietta and came back to Knoxville as quick as we could. So in fall of 1997, came back to Knoxville and have been full-time with UT ever since. But I did student activities and student programming, kind of in that doing a student line. Then I got into fundraising and development at the law school for about 8 years. Then I moved to UT Martin to take on a campus-wide role in development. Well, in development. I went back to Martin a little later as chancellor, but then went to UT Memphis, the Health Science Center, and worked as their vice chancellor of advancement. And then they hired Joe DiPietro to be president of the University of Tennessee. Man. So Dr. DiPietro asked me to come back and work for him in a chief of staff role. And
what a great leader he was.
He's still just such a phenomenal guy. But 6 years under him was magical, and worked there. And then went to UT Martin for a little over 6 years as chancellor. And then last January, Randy Boyd and Don D. Plowman reached out and said, we need a new leader over the Statewide Institute of Agriculture. We think you'd be a great fit. Would you come back to Knoxville? And I said yes, but also knowing that our first grandchild was going to be born in Knoxville last June. So it's been a homecoming, and all 3 of our adult children are here in Knoxville, and now with this grandbaby, and it's come full circle.
Now, take us with you with Anything is Possible, the podcast. Stream new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
I've seen the University of Tennessee through various and sundry cycles of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you have.
I have, right? UT's on fire right now.
It's phenomenal.
Your teams are just, I'm not talking about the athletic teams, which are on fire.
Sure.
I was on campus the other day speaking at an event on campus. The place is crackling with possibility. Am I misreading that?
I don't think you are. And when in the University of Tennessee system, it's a small system when you look at Penn State or Texas A&M, that sort of thing. So it's a family, it's an intimate family. But when you have a visionary president and when you have a visionary chancellor of the Knoxville campus, magic happens. And I think you're witnessing that right now with Randy Boyd and Dondie Plowman. They work together so well. They're both such phenomenal leaders. But when you talk about the campus, Chancellor Plowman came in, and if you look, the whole face of campus is changing. Instead of not just beautiful buildings, but accessibility, new programs, new colleges being launched, much less athletic programs being on fire. But she's engaged. I mean, she is out. She's out raising money. She's working with alumni and industry partners, and she loves on those students, and they love her back. And it's phenomenal to watch. Then you've got Randy, who incredible business person, entrepreneur, but visionary and first generation college student. And he's out there working with the Board of Trustees and the legislature and the governor's office and these big constituencies. But they're working together, and it's fun. It's fun.
You as a leader, though, what's happening in the Ag Institute?
For us, agriculture is still Tennessee's leading industry. So last year, right about a $90 billion economic impact for Tennessee. And so I think for the Institute of Agriculture, we have offices in all 95 counties. We've got research centers in 10 counties, 4-H, about 150,000 Tennessee students a year going through leadership activities. Here in Knoxville, we've got the Herbert College of Agriculture, about 2,000 students, generating the next leaders in agriculture, and then the College of Veterinary Medicine, which is a world-class hospital.
Unbelievable.
And it does great work. And I think a couple things are happening to us as a state. I think since COVID, people have become more concerned about scarcity of food, where their food's coming from, quality of food, cost of food, and then the logistics, shipping and receiving. And so, our mission every day is to make sure that Tennesseans have access to high quality food, food that's affordable, that we're improving fiber. Unfortunately, and a lot of our community members just don't know it, Tennessee is number 3 in the country now in farms lost per year. And so when you think about that from a food distribution, food supply standpoint, we're advocates for smarter farming, more efficient farming, but also general awareness that we need to protect our farmland and our food sources.
Technology and farming. My understanding is that the technological advances that are occurring in your field are yielding hyper productivity. Like you can grow more in less space.
That's right.
Cycle times are different. Maybe speak just a little bit to what technology is doing. Technology
has helped, and let's just say in dairy farming, when you think about the dairy farmer and the time it takes to produce milk cows, it's usually twice a day if you're doing it by hand or machine. We are working on and working with business on the rise of robotic milkers, where a cow walks into a chute, it does a retinal scan, and it can tell the farmer if that cow has a fever, if it's not feeling well. And so maybe that cow doesn't get milk that day. Maybe you rest them, but you still feed them and then let them go out after they eat. Or a cow's healthy and happy, you can milk them 3 times a day. And they stay in an air-conditioned barn, and life's pretty good. But the technological advances are huge, and we're hoping that those technological advances in farming, drought-resistant soybean plants, insect-proof corn, things that we can do to make sure our yields are better does help. We still have to be so careful with that balance of losing the family farm and yield on crops.
I am delighted, though, at the quality of leadership that I'm seeing across the board in our state. And with you, I have heard so many good things about the way you lead and how you are with people. And today, probably my big insight just from talking to you is that people that pour into you, when they do it well and do it the right way, it creates possibility. Like when I think about and you probably have many more, but the mentors at the milestone points of your life, that person created possibility. And I think you're doing the same thing. Maybe as we close, you could talk about maybe just some of the things you've learned about leadership.
Sure. You know, of course, I love to read, and I've got, and a lot of times when you read, it really provides you an opportunity just to do some reflection. And, you know, back in the late 80s, I read this timeless book called Leadership is an Art by Max Dupree. And Alan, if you pick it up, it's a weekend read. It's great. And I read it every December. But Max Dupree said one thing I'll never forget. He said the thing about leadership, there are two components. One is you need to define reality, and the second thing is you need to say thank you. And so when you think about that with organizations, you know, defining reality means setting a culture, setting an example, leading, providing direction, but then just as equally important is the gratitude. You talked about Alex Haley and the turtle on the post. We have teams, we've got colleagues, we've got people that are helping out, and they all have a first name and they all have a story, and so you've got to really nurture those relationships and show gratitude for the folks that are helping the organization move forward. And those are when I think about leadership, and for me in organizations I've led, those are the two things I try to think about. They're looking for you to be the culture champion and set the vision, but they also they want to feel appreciated. And I love relationships. I love people. It's what drives me and get my energy from. And just remembering all those folks working with you have a story, and you need to get to know those stories.
All the way from Frog Jump.
All the way from Frog Jump.
Tennessee. Dr. Keith Carver, thanks for being on Anything is Possible, and thanks for being a representation of what's possible.
Well, thank you, and God bless you.